Did you know Obi-Wan's beard in Attack of the Clones is fake? While this is only seen in certain shots of the movie, it is still shocking how this was snuck in without anyone knowing. But why give him a fake beard? Well, you see, during reshoots for the film, Ewan McGregor was called back to reprise his role as Obi-Wan, but there was one major problem. Ewan was currently acting in the 2001 movie Black Hawk Down, in which he had a buzz cut and was clean shaven. Therefore, Ewan was given a false beard, but the crazy thing is that a similar situation occurred for The Phantom Menace, because during the reshoots for that movie, Ewan had longer hair, so they had to give him a short hair wig, which is very noticeable in many shots. And my assignment to you is to find these shots the next time you watch the movies, and tell me where they can be found in the comments. The one aspect of the clone troopers you may have never realized is that when they save the Jedi in the arena on Geonosis, there's actually a perfect opportunity for Order 66 to be executed right here. So why did Palpatine wait?
Your arrogance blinds you.
Well, despite this being a perfect opportunity to take out most of the Jedi High Council members, like Mace Windu, Plo Koon, and even Yoda, who was on the gunships, there is one thing missing: Anakin. At this point, Palpatine had not fully groomed him into a Sith Lord, so while he could have just created the Empire with Count Dooku as his apprentice, he would have always looked back at the missed opportunity that was Anakin. But speaking of Palpatine, have you ever noticed how he looks older in this movie than he does in Revenge of the Sith? The answer to this reveals something about George Lucas's original plans for Palpatine that fans may not have expected. You see, while Palpatine in Attack of the Clones has receding hair with added liver spots and wrinkles, in Revenge of the Sith he actually looks much more healthy, even if his hair is white. It turns out Palpatine was originally supposed to be slowly corrupted by the dark side, going from the Palpatine we see in Episode 1 to the hideous monster in Episode 6. But when creating Revenge of the Sith, the idea that Palpatine was disfigured by his own Force lightning, which he uses as proof of the Jedi attack on his life, was used instead. But going back to Obi-Wan, what in the world is he talking about on Kamino here?
R4! Scrabble code 5 to Coruscant, care of the old folks home.
While it may seem like Obi-Wan has gone off to drink again, this is actually pretty simple. The old folks home is no more than a call sign for the Jedi Temple that Jedi would use when on missions around the galaxy. Even Adi Gallia uses this very call sign in the game Jedi Starfighter. And an interesting aspect about this scene is that while it may seem that Yoda and Mace are idiots for having no reaction to the clone army and being focused on Padme's assassination attempt instead, this actually does make sense. You see, Padme is the leading senator opposed to the military creation bill, so her death would literally be a final nail in that coffin to convince the rest of the Senate that even the senators are not safe from the approaching war. Later on the same planet, we get a background moment of Jango Fett hitting his head on the Slave 1 door as a callback to the iconic Stormtrooper blooper from A New Hope, but is this how Jango Fett got the dent on his helmet? Well, yes and no. The Force.net actually clears this up greatly. Because what if I told you Jango actually sustains not just one, but two dents in this movie? The first he gets is on the top of his helmet after hitting the edge of the Kamino platform, which we see on the top of his helmet here, but the second one, which is also seen on Boba's later, on the front to the left, is actually not acquired until his scuffle with the Reek on Geonosis. This means that most likely the head bump here got neither of these two dents. But Boba Fett is not the only thing from the original trilogy making a return here. That is because during the Coruscant speeder chase between Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Sam Wesell, we can actually spot some very iconic ships in the background. In case you can't tell, these are actually two TIE fighters chasing an X-Wing. Canonically, this makes no sense, but it is an awesome catch to find in the movie. This sequence, which is 14 whole minutes by the way, kinda crazy, actually has two other really interesting hidden details. One is inside of the Outlander Club, where we can actually see multiple screens showing different pod races throughout the galaxy. This shows us that pod racing was not only a popular attraction in the Outer Rim, but also had a virtual audience in the core worlds as well. However, the second, more interesting detail is an answer to a question many fans have always wondered. What does Zam Wesell say right before dying? Well, it's not the name Jango Fett in an alien language to answer the Jedi, but rather an insult in Huttese. She actually says "We Shani Slimo," which means bounty hunter sleazeball in Huttese. Her death is very tragic because her and Jango actually had a relationship in Legends, and then he just kills her in cold blood here. Guess he was a sleazeball after all. Just like the war-committing Ki-Adi-Mundi over here. Okay, just kidding. Ki-Adi-Mundi gets far too much hate, let's be honest, but he actually has an interesting error in the final battle of episode 2. You see, many people remember Ki-Adi-Mundi had a blue lightsaber, but there are a few shots of him in the arena with a green one. While some people think he picked up a green lightsaber in the arena, this can't be true because in the shots right after these, he is immediately back to holding a blue one without having moved anywhere to grab a different lightsaber. This mistake was explained later on in canon by him actually having a multi-crystal lightsaber that could change between green and blue. But there was another way to have green and blue lightsabers at the same time. That's right, dual wielding. And in the background of the initial arena assault are multiple dual-wielding Jedi, one of which actually has reverse grip like Ahsoka Tano from the Clone Wars. Now, if you remember earlier, I said that Ki-Adi-Mundi did not pick up a new green lightsaber in the arena, but there is one character who did, Anakin. The cool thing about the two Jedi that handed him and Obi-Wan lightsabers, the same they would use against Dooku later on in the movie, is that they weren't just background characters. No, this is Nikonis Tasu and Sefjet Josal, who were specifically picked out of 212 Jedi in this task force to bring lightsabers to Anakin and Obi-Wan. So clearly they were good at something, even if it wasn't surviving. Rest in peace, boys. Rest in peace. But in case you are new to this channel, this is the segment where I give some brief self-improvement advice, and today we will actually be looking at Mark 8:34 through 35 in the Bible, and if that's not your kind of thing, then you can skip to this time right here. Now today, the Bible actually says, talking about Jesus, it says, "He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, 'If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it.'" This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So the sort of interpretation I got from this scripture personally is the idea that, a lot of people are very focused, I myself can include myself in this box, of trying to really, when you analyze your life, you really want to, in a sense, save yourself, make it out of the trenches or whatever you want to call it, and get to a point where you're comfortable and you're living a life where you're happy, right? That is the sort of goal everyone's trying to get to. But an interesting thing here, and like I said, I am also guilty of this as well. I'm not trying to say I'm some, perfect guy that's not doing this. The idea here that the Bible is saying that we should live by is that those who try to save your life will lose it, but those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. That is talking about Jesus. So what this means is that we should purposefully, willingly, we should desire, or maybe not desire, but we should, in fact, it is righteous to give our lives. That means be uncomfortable, face your fears, do things that are constantly pushing you to places you never really wanted to go. You know what I mean? So that is sort of the idea here, which is obviously going to be, difficult for some people to understand or even want to live by, but it is the most fulfilling way, and it is really the only way. But yeah, that is the sort of Christian advice for this video. Getting back to the main video, this is just a quick reminder that you can subscribe if you enjoy this content, as it does very much support the channel and push me out to more people. But yeah, let's get right back to it. But let's swing over to the Bad Batch real quick to look at a connection to the Battle of Geonosis you may not have realized. That is this large memorial at the Republic Center for Military Operations, which actually remembers the heavy clone casualties faced at this first battle. This is the first battle memorial, which is actually made out of a massive slab of Geonosian stone with the names of all the clone troopers who were lost to this alien hellscape listed in remembrance. If only the clone army weren't the villains the whole time. Well, George Lucas certainly thought so, at least when he made a very deliberate choice to the way the clone army moves around in this movie. You see, in most movies, conventionally, the good guys move left to right the same way we read to signify that they are normal or correct, but the villains will often move from right to left to show something is off or against the current. Despite the clones being led by the Jedi and being the side helping the light side of the Force, George specifically had them move from right to left to let the audience feel that something is off about this army of the Republic. But even more thought went into the Clone Wars as a whole, which actually had some disturbing parallels to World War II. To find out how, click this video on screen now about the 20 craziest facts from the Clone Wars Season 1.
Do it.